And I have with me in the studio to discuss this Pascal Achunine. He's the Executive Director, Health Emergency Initiative. It's good to have you join me this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Great.
Good morning.
Great. And then as time goes on the program, we'll be having the Director General. Oh, he's there already. Okay. We have Larry Mojola, the Director General of the Lagos State Safety Commission. Good morning, Larry. Good to have you join me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. All right. Now, Pascal, let me start with you here in the studio. Now, when we talk about the issue of safety, we often talk about precaution as a way of forestalling casualty or damages and all of that. But what are we generally missing? Because some of these things, when we talk about them, we still see them happen again.
What is missing is that we have not been intentional in our approach, in our methodology. And it has not been broad-based in terms of involvement of everyone, private sector, public sector, and the social sector, and the everyday Nigerian. So we don't have the orientation that this is what we must do to prevent this. We have this privilege, I would say that in this part of the world, we don't witness natural disasters as frequent as it is in the developed societies, especially in the temperate region. So we seem to have dropped our balls because things will just happen and we'll move on to the next disaster. Abroad and other parts of the world, they clearly identify that this is the existential threat they face and they work towards minimizing it. So here, what is been missing is that we go through one tragedy and we shrug it off, prepare for the next, wait for the next tragedy, not prepare. We had a Jede fire disaster last year. We had a tank explosion with diesel 2 months ago. And you see massive number of casualties. But do we go to the root cause? What is the root do we conduct analysis? What is responsible for this? Who is supposed to take responsibility? Are persons being sanctioned? Are there persons who were negligent and step 1, 2, 3 we are taking, including fines, from fines to jail term to a preventive. So these are the things that have been missed. I'm glad that the DG is going to be part of this conversation, especially because the agency or the commission is saddled with the critical responsibility of ensuring safety of lives and property in Lagos. But we need to actually move from the ideal to enforcement because we have not been enforcing. If, for instance, the culprits responsible for what happened last week are held to account, we will see that there will be a deterrent among the players. Anybody who has been responsible for this in the past, you see a complete change.
Yeah. All right, I'll have the DG shortly. But Pascal, the point there is you're talking about the issue of enforcement. Let us also look at the practical aspect of things when we talk about the adequate personnel who would conduct the enforcement. We'll talk about the wherewithal when it comes to the equipment they have or the skill they have to carry out all of those. How much of that is available?
So let's look at it from this angle. You may set up a very massive structure. Look at Opik Plaza, for instance. Probably the property is worth not anything between 3 to 5 billion or more. And just because of recklessness of someone driving on the street who did not exercise necessary precaution, the entire place and lives were lost, as it were. So what we bring it to a point, okay, government has set up an agency, and the agency is perhaps taking steps to ensure that there are people or stakeholders comply with what and what should be done. But government alone cannot do this. So the citizens need to be sensitized. There should be advocacy. The private sector must not also be indifferent. In the last 2 years, our organization, for instance, even working with the Safety Commission, we trained close to 300 persons as first responders. The essence is to know what to do, even in the event of fire. The event you need to administer CPR or first aid, you know what to do. You know what number to call. Over 60% of Lagosians do not know that there's a 767 to call when emergency arises, or 112 or 122 as for federal safety. So these are things that must require collaborative efforts The private sector must get involved. They must train. For the people trained, a private sector organization funded it, and it included the police, road safety, emergency agencies, youth communities, even vulcanizers and tow van operators, who perhaps are the first to arrive at the scene of accident. So there's a lot more synergy that must be deployed in this between the private sector and the public sector. And as I talked earlier, you said, okay, even if we have this structure and they place the right equipment, how many safety marshals or safety ambassadors or people that have skills to handle emergency are installed? Look at the OPIC building, for instance. It's possible that all the floors, they may have maybe one or two cases. I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt. But if we scrutinize, do they really have a first responder in that premises? And are there fines for that premise? Yes. Purposes. So that in the event emergency happens, this is what should be done. Then for the tanker drivers and all those who convey these items, especially combustible items, do they, in their various branches and units, because the skill is so structured that it can be customized even in vernacular, in your local language, do they have such a structure? Do they have a process of confirming that before this product or this truck leaves from this place to this place, there are certain quality assurance measures taken to prevent something like this playing out? And then it's not just done ad hoc because we have a crisis now. Whether it's the Safety Commission or other agencies, including Fire Service, NEMA, and others who are involved in this, do they, from time to time, that, okay, this region, this local government, this area, this organization, this sector, these are measures we are taking to avoid things like this playing out, to make sure that there is compliance. And if there is a failure of compliance, you make sure that people pay fine or people go to jail. It's critical. We must approach it intentionally. That is how it has worked elsewhere, where they have order, where people's lives are not wasted. Okay. The tragedy, before I pause, the tragedy is that if somebody goofs either as a regulator or if somebody goofs as an operator, the implication is that an innocent person can be a victim, including those who are driving along that Mobile Bank that day. So many of them were caught in there.
Like you talked about the issue of accountability. Now we have close to 30 vehicles were destroyed. Who pays for all of those? You know, but we'll talk about all that. Let's have Larry Mojola is the Director General of the Lagos State Safety Commission. Larry, it's good to have you join me now. Now, the incident that happened on Friday that led to a few casualties as well as the destruction of property is really worrisome. This is not the first, second, third, fourth, or 10th, or 20th, as the case may be. They keep recurring. How could that have been avoided if you have to? I know you have conducted some level of assessment on what happened and how it happened.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pascal. Thanks. I'd just like to reiterate a lot of what Mr. Pascal has said. It's down to people not doing what they're meant to do, and as we say, safety begins with you, and it ends with you, and we're all responsible for our actions, and our inactions could certainly cause infractions that can then affect other people. This particular isolated case, we're still investigating. But from initial investigations, it looks like it was down to negligence. Now, we all know that LPG is compressed gas under high pressure, very volatile, highly combustible, and it's also very flammable. So when it leaks, it travels very fast, drops on surfaces, and once it comes in contact with an ignition point, there's an explosion. Now, what happened that day was the tanker that had the gas had started leaking. Obviously, the driver did not take any action. Normally, they have tankers come with automatic emergency shutdown valves, and if these emergency shutdown valves do not work, there's a manual override, so that once the gas leaks and the driver smells it, he can override, he can switch off. This reduces the gas dispersing into the environment. Obviously, this did not happen that day. A lot of gas leaked into that compound, into that environment. There was a source of ignition because there was a restaurant that was in that premises, and then there was an explosion. So it's really about us understanding the negligence that we carry out, and these things then crystallize, these risks crystallize, and then they become disasters. We've been doing a lot from our end in terms of collaborating with different agencies, the DPR. Now, the oil and gas sector is regulated by the DPR. But having said that, the Safety Commission, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources work very hand in hand with them. We have a 4E's program, which I'll quickly run through this. We evaluate risks, we engage with all the stakeholders, we educate, and we enforce. Just last week, we had a meeting with a lot of the associations that are involved in the downstream sector, NAPGAM, LIPGA, where we discussed at length processes, steps with regards handling of gas. And we decided that we were going to further come up with regulations and standards concerning the handling of gas cylinders across the state. We put out a publication 2 or 3 days before this incident. So just to let you know that, yes, we are proactive, but these accidents still occur due to negligence. Now, in terms of gas, before any gas tanker gets gas from the depot, there is a standard process. And there's an initiative called Safe to Load, which is anchored by the DPR. They certify these trucks, they confirm that the automatic shutdown valves are working, and they highlight any other attendant risks before granting them access to load. We also have representatives from NEMA on ground to sign off before these tankers move. However, aside these depots and these tankers, one of the biggest problems we are facing currently are these refilling and decanting plants. And these are the plants where customers go to refill their different sizes of cylinders. These plants are located across the state. A significant number of them have been licensed by DPR to operate. But again, we still have quite a number that are not registered, that are not licensed, that do not carry out their activities in line with safety protocols. So I'll just talk you through some of the standard items that we look at.
Okay. Let me chip in this so that we still bring things into perspective. Now, you identified that the accident was caused or could have been caused from negligence. Now that we have casualties involved, these are people who could be breadwinners of their homes, innocent people who had nothing to do with the negligence of someone. There were others who have lost property and all of that. Pascal was talking about being intentional and also punishing people who find themselves in that space. So how does the Safety Commission help in this regard? When an accident happens out of negligence, what are the consequences for this?
A number of things would happen. Immediately the accident occurs, the Safety Commission is on ground to confirm exactly what has happened. Once the accident or the incident has been brought under control, a detailed investigation process kicks in, and we identify the root cause of the problem. If it's a problem if it was an accident that was caused due to negligence, we forward these files to the Ministry of Justice, and the state then goes ahead to prosecute these people. We already currently have quite a number of establishments and facilities that we're in court with in terms of negligence. These sort of accidents that have been caused by negligence will just not go away. We will prosecute them. The directors of these companies, if they're found that they've been negligent, will certainly have a lot to answer to. But just to also reiterate what we're doing in terms of being proactive. Last year, we started an audit of these LPG plants, skid plants across the state. And we've, so far as at this morning, we have inspected and audited 650 facilities. A total of 35 have been shut and decommissioned due to non-compliance. And those that have been shut and decommissioned, we've also forwarded their case files to the Ministry of Justice to prosecute them for negligence. Because again, if we don't do these things, then we start to get accidents, people lose their lives. And at the end of the day, the city feels almost unsafe. So these are just some of the things that we're doing to ensure that we have a safer Lagos for all of us.
All right, as a way of putting things in perspective, before I come to Pascal, Are there some instances of prosecution you can cite for us to understand, so Nigerians and Lagosians understand that actually from the perspective you're saying this is ongoing, prosecution is taking place, and maybe some persons have actually either been fined or have been jailed according to the law, the way you're saying it?
Absolutely. I just reiterated this. Yes, there are a number of cases in court. We've recently charged 8 facility owners to court. I won't be able to mention this, but we can send in the details to you later, which can be published. None have been sent to jail yet. These things do take time, and the courts have been off on recess as well. But the state will not step down. We need to ensure that people go. The law takes its course when it comes to negligence. There's set down standards, there's set down rules, there's set down safety standards. What happens is the negligence. People want to cut corners, and this is what causes accidents, unfortunately.
All right. Pascal, let's talk about the issue of safety. And like it is always said that prevention is better than cure. When it comes to safety of things like this, where should we begin to become very conscious from? Where does that safety consciousness start from?
It starts from me. It starts from you. Individuals must recognize that, okay, at home, do I have fire extinguisher? In my car, do I have a functional fire extinguisher? Do I know what to do when there is fire? Do I know what to do when there is an emergency? As a matter of fact, one of the tragedies we have here is that Nigeria does not have any national pre-hospital care policy, no national ambulance policy. And that most of what you see, fatalities that happen when there are emergencies, happen in large numbers. Over 50% could actually survive if we have a functional pre-hospital care system in Nigeria. So coming back to your question, so we must first of all evaluate my organization, where I live, my residence, estate associations. Do they have effective, or at least a miniature kind of safety measures, which includes fire extinguisher? The other is to have knowledge of what to do. There were reports that it took some time before some of the relevant agencies arrived to put out the fire. Maybe this time, and there have been several cases like that in the past. But let's even assume that the people, bystanders, rather than pouring water, taking pictures and videos, which is an area where our training, especially in collaboration with Safety Commission, is trying to address. Don't take pictures, don't take videos, call 767, apply CPR, administer some first aid, and that cannot happen just by wishing it. There should be a training, there must be capacity building. So number one is capacity building. Capacity building both at home, in the office, and the public space. Churches must have a structure like that. Schools must have a structure like that. Government offices and companies. Secondly, the capacity building will not happen from the blues. There must be funding support. Let CSR of private and corporate organizations be more channeled towards the environment. Saving lives is part of it for your sustainability. We see that the trend is that more and more CSR support goes to entertainment. You need to be, your business must thrive before you go do entertainment. So CSR support must increase. Then enforcement is critical. As the DG said, we want to see a situation where it's published in newspapers that X number of negligent firms or individuals were jailed for 6 years, for 5 years, as the case may be, as a result of negligence. And then there must be stakeholders engagement, which deals with advocacy. So most of the persons, perhaps the chap driving the truck, may have been on tramadol or any of those substances. So there must be, in the first place, engagement with them, and giving them specific skills they need to know that, oh, this thing you do, not only it can expose your life to danger and others. And finally, on a very important note, we must not wish things that something will happen by itself. There must be a clear-cut, intentional measure that
like we leave things to God. God will protect all of us, and then we go to sleep. All right, Larry, before I let you go, let's talk about the issue of enlightenment and public awareness. It's quite very critical, especially from where Pascal is putting it. Talk to us what your safety commission is doing to enlighten Nigerians, especially Lagosians, in that regard.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy that Mr. Pascal mentioned this, that we work very closely with the private sector. We collaborate with organizations basically to enhance and deepen the message of safety. Now, safety, like we've said, begins with you and ends with you. Don't let it happen. In Yoruba, it means maja koshele. An unsafe act stopped prevents a disaster from occurring. The Safety Commission constantly, regularly meets with people at the grassroots, school kids, school children, training them on basic safety. We've had quite a number this year where we have trained 300 NYSC core members on first aid and CPR. And we've also trained 150 secondary students on the same first aid and CPR. We plan to continue this with the market men and women, artisans, blue-collar operatives, etc. We also had the maiden edition of the Safety Conference to commemorate the World Day for Safety on the 28th of April this year. This is basically to spread awareness on the need to act safe, on the need to think safe. We're currently working on a master plan, occupational safety master plan for Lagos State. We are also close to signing an MOU with the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria in terms of working safe at workplaces, using machines safely, maintaining equipment to reduce harm or injuries or dangerous occurrences in the workplace. And we're also working with the statutory organizations in terms of enforcing insurance, statutory insurance. You mentioned earlier that when these occurrences happen, what happens? Who bears the brunt? Who makes the payments? So there are quite a number of things we are doing from the Safety Commission. We are deepening the knowledge of safety within our schools. We've set up safety clubs. We've trained and incorporated 300 safety prefects across primary and secondary, public and private schools in the state. We believe that if we catch them young, if these kids get these safety trainings at a young age, they will grow up to start thinking safely, acting safely, and obviously reducing incidents and accidents across the state. Safety is collective, and we will continue. We will not give up until we ensure that we have a safer Lagos for all.
Okay. Larry Mojola, the Director General of Lagos Safety Commission, thank you so much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.
Right. And Pascal Achunine, Executive Director of Health Emergency Initiative, thank you for being on the program as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Right.